principles, how we are able, or we have been able, you will realize it or not, to scale up this concept to a larger scale, to a district scale, to a community scale, to a city scale, with Jelena BRAJKOVIC and David CALAS and their guests for a panel discussion. And then there will be the final restore exercise, the communication activities. As anticipated, we are going to deal with the fifth work packages results. So the fifth work packages, led by Andras Wright and Jelena BRAJKOVIC, was about scale jumping. So how to scale up these regenerative principles to a larger scale, but also how to scale up the effect at the city level. This is also very important. As you can imagine, this is a really huge topic. We had a great experience with our last and fifth training school in Vienna, organized by David CALAS, Marcello Turini, and other. This has been really a great experience last September. And I think this will be one of the topics that David is going to address together with Jelena and with your guests. So I would like to introduce yourselves directly. David, please, it's up to you.
Hello, everybody. So I will start with a short overview of the VG5 flow and the topics, and then David can comment on training school in Vienna, and we will give we'll share some thoughts with our panelists in a very relaxed chat in something which we imagine as a round table. So just a short introduction on Working Group 5 of Restore. So Working Group 5 became active in February. We were formed and some of the main goals were set. So we are not yet finished. So in a way, this working group is still ongoing, and you can see the mission as exploring scale jumping potentials for neighborhood, city, and society-wide level regenerative sustainability. What we focused on is the analysis, are the solutions, and of course, very important to us, practical field of implementing some ideas that we all been mentioning today. So scale jumping in size, yes, in quality, and of course analyzing of this triangle that makes our how to say reality system, and this is human nature and built environment. So VG5 was organized in eight different subgroups. First intended 9, which later became 8. And in first part of our research and ongoing conversation, we first analyzed, of course, interactions of human-built environment, nature-built environment, and of course the whole triangular matrix. What we will be also talking about here is this systems thinking and how to actually solve all the problems that generate from different, how to say, aspects and topics and scales, and how can we apply this holistic thinking. Tools, platforms, and metrics is the second great area of VG5 research, and here we focused on some very specific, very practical issues, and that is digital tools for supporting design. This is unofficial, let's say, name, smartness, emerging technologies, assessment, rating, and diagnostics, and of course, legislation. For the outcomes, of course, we plan scientific papers. There is even a whole sustainability special issue dedicated to VG5 topics. We've been talking, and I will introduce the VG5 booklet, which is not yet published, but may come to your inbox as a Christmas present, I guess, in January and at the end of December. And of course, short-term scientific missions that I already mentioned and that are yet to happen, except one that happened already and is currently ongoing. So for the milestones, as Carlo already mentioned, we had many meetings, of which unfortunately many were online, as we were unlucky enough to have the global pandemics interfering our research and our plans, but we made it to the training school in Vienna, which actually happened in place where it should be, considering the topic, but it was held in hybrid mode. We will come back to this with David, but I will just briefly introduce the Digify book name and, of course, regenerative systems thinking within the built environment. We come to this after all that Restore has been doing and after all that Restore is about. We try to connect all the dots from previous working groups, to connect them, and of course to give a guidebook for regenerative implementations through interaction tools, platforms, and metrics. Also, it is you can see the already mentioned structure of the VG5 through the chapters in our book. First part dedicated to interactions, as I already mentioned, then tools, platforms, and metrics, where you can see the exact names of the subchapters that you could be reading at the end of the December, beginning of January, and of course, this practice exercise, as we call it, that we performed in Vienna in September. And I think this is enough for me, just as a slight introduction to David CALAS, who will tell us a few words about the training school and maybe something about the hybrid mode and the content, whatever, David, you want to share with us, and then we can transfer to panelists.
Thank you very much, Jelena. Thank you very much, Jelena, for the introducing words. Thank you also, Carlo. Yes, we have to say that the training school in Vienna was one of the, if not the only, physical meeting, or excuse me, hybrid moments that we had. And the topic was Scale Jump 2030, the good urban life. So we invited 16 trainees, young professionals. We had 3 international trainers, we had 3 local trainers, and along with that, we hosted 16 speakers that shared with us valuable inputs. We had 2 site visits and 1 exhibition visit. And of course, this all ended in a jury. And besides that, the trainees had also to work in those 5 days on a plot that we choose in the 20th district of Vienna called Brigittaplatz, Hannovermarkt. It's an outskirt district, and where we asked some quite challenging tasks, also framing a holistic approach. So a lot to do into these 5 days. And I think our pressuring topics were arising around social cultural relations, circular considerations, and of course also biophilic reflections. Of course, integrating different scales. So from the street level to the greenscape, from the greenscape to the there nearby located market situation, and from the market situation to the surrounding area of mainly housing blocks from the foundation times, so 19th century, to the 20th century planning cradles of the 50s, 60s. So a really diverse neighborhood, about 2 hectares big, where the trainees and we try to exchange as much as possible and to create a valuable input for further evolvement of planning and further approaches. So at the final presentation, at a certain point, and by the way, really interesting presentations, certain questions arise that we had no time to discuss intensively. And these questions are the one that we now want to bring forward in this panel and address to a great panel. So we invited really interesting people, and I asked to switch on the video camera of the invited Anna-Vera DEINHAMMER, who played a very crucial role in the organization of the training school in Vienna. She is the program leader of the Do Tank Circular City 2020-2030 City of Vienna. She's an architect and holds a PhD in civil engineering. So she combines not just these 2 disciplines, but she also tries to combine in her professional life the academic world and the construction industry. So practice related and research driven on the other hand. Then we have Clarice BLEIL de Souza. Clarice is an associate professor at the Welsh School of Architecture in Cardiff, researching, teaching, and supervising also PhDs and master students. And her research focus is based on decision-making from an interdisciplinary perspective, addressing sustainable and regenerative design and participatory design processes. Then we have, last but not least, Francesco Gonella, Francesco is a physicist and full professor for molecular science and nanosystems at the University Ca' Foscari in Venice. And he's especially researching topics around system thinking. So those systems that we are also thinking as. Lately, he co-authored a paper named, really creative name, Kill Venice, where the systemic approach of a tourist Venice was investigated and also visualized. So I'm glad and very welcome to this panel. And there is especially one big question that popped up during the final presentation of the training school in Vienna several times. What is your point of view regarding current trends in the built environment? Where are we going to live tomorrow? Maybe Anna-Vera, you want to take this first, and then we go to Clarice and then to Francesco. Maybe you are also willing to share a short statement where we can hang on with the panel.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you so much for the invitation. It was so good having you here in Vienna with the training school, because it was a pleasure for me, not only sharing my experience with the trainees. I had to learn so much from you too. So regarding a circular city, I defined 3 trends which are really emerging now. And the first is, of course, unlearning and change. We really need to change our approach to building structures and buildings in general, because until now we see them as material consumers or resource consumers, but they will be material banks in future if we really want to fulfill our task towards a circular city. This leads us to the second trend. This is a design for reuse on all levels. So we have to start with rethinking our building products and building elements. They have to be reusable and, of course, recyclable. Then we move over with our thoughts to transformable buildings with a long life cycle, and we end up our thoughts with integrating circular economy principles in urban development and design. So this is the circular city we will live in I think 20 or 30 years. And the third very big trend is, of course, digitization for information, because circularity in the built environment starts with an integral planning process aided by digital building tools such as building information modeling, and information is the key. And for example, integrating of platform economics, because we really need to know where are materials which are ready to harvest, and we need to integrate them in our new designs and projects. So thank you for, hopefully it was short enough.
Very interesting. Clarice, what about your thinking? Where are we going to live tomorrow?
I don't have such a long statement. I think an important aspect is to think about robust and systemic design methods, which actually integrate solutions rather than collage solutions from different technicians. We are working too much in silos recently. We are increasing specialization, and that makes us work more and more in silos. We need to reconcile that. We need to integrate. We need to think and learn a bit more about what each other are areas of expertise to be able to make proposals that are sufficiently integrated. We also need to develop transferable workflows, and I think technology is not there for us to use statistic patterns on what we currently have been doing, like big data is showing us, but more trying to predict the future in the sense that I agree with Professor Emmanuel Delanois that we have to borrow patterns, look at patterns that are working, and try to implement them in a smarter way, which then presuppose a lot of integrated knowledge. And finally, I think we need to really understand how do we transfer knowledge from our communities to our technicians, because that is so far poorly understood. There is a lot of focus on participation, people thinking that participation ticks the box and then we are done with it. It's not so simple. How much are we actually learning from the communities? How much are we actually designing for the collective? Because it seems that so far we are embedded in this collage of individual viewpoints instead of working for the collective. And I think we need to learn how to work as part of a whole, which is restorative. And for that, systemic thinking is great. So I pass the ball to Francesco, who is the expert in that.
Okay, thank you, Clarice. First of all, let me thank all of you for having invited me to this quite exciting world. You know, it's a new world for me. I come from physics, and in the last, let's say, 10, 12 years, I've just been doing system thinking, but without having any contact so far with architecture and you know, your realm of activities. So thank you, Jelena. Thank you, David, for the nice and underserved presentation you made, actually. And well, I learned a lot, despite the fact that I arrived in this context of the cost action quite recently, just to become part of the panel and to have the honor of write down, you know, a preface to your next book publication. Well, I can say that I strongly believe in system thinking as a real, a novel and effective tool to be applied in the study of circular economy and urban metabolism at a city scale. I think that because recently I started collaborating with a group and we are doing, you know, an analytical simulator of the cities of Naples in Italy and Beijing in China. And we just put down all the incredibly complex network of flows that feed the city. And by studying the pattern and the configuration of the feedback network between all these flows, you know, you can have a hint about how the entire organism is operated, and possibly to find out the leverage point to intervene if you want to face effectively specific problems. And you know, one of the questions which worried me a little bit about this kind of study, and one of the questions that I'm sure you share with me is it possible to reconcile the idea of a real sustainability and regenerative society with the current narrative about smart cities? You know what, smart cities, I mean, how much can we trust about the role of ICT technology to pursue restoration, regeneration in an urban context? My feeling is that the narrative, the current narrative of smart cities regards just a part of the city, the richest one. And a correct approach to a real restoration and regeneration of the urban metabolism should be a little bit more holistic and flexible, even in the definition of the problem and of the approaches we would like to pursue. And I think that to the extent I have read the material concerning your 4 years work, well, you are going to go in the right direction. So I'm even more happy to have this opportunity to share, you know, this kind of knowledge that will certainly contribute me in the case of maybe further future collaboration. So thank you again.
This is good that you mentioned that we are moving in the right direction. This was basically our aim to also, let's say, certain topics, and you raised you all three raised really international interesting concerns, let's say, that also to leave a really positivist frame that is sometimes blinding us or letting us use rose-colored small glasses or something like this. So my question is, we know that we need holistic approaches to the system that we call now city or our urban neighborhood. So do you think that, and also I'm putting this question back to you three, is there a more intertwined relation between the disciplines needed? Because now also as we sit here in this panel, we are usually not working together in this constellation. So do you think this is one of the crucial things that is finally an approach to the success of scale jumping and also to the multidisciplinary system thinking process in a whole?
Maybe I could start again. Absolutely, David. I really loved the statement of Clarice before, as she said, we need stop working in silos. Because me as a planner or as a civil engineer, I really know what we have to do, but I have to work with in the field of economics, of course. I have to discuss our issues in the field of all those regulations. And we cannot solve all those things without our society, because we are working on our built environment worth living in. And so I think too that a smart city is not only a digitalized city. A smart city is for me a city which deals with the issues of climate protection, decarbonization, of course, climate change adaptation, so that we have a resilient city with the aid of circular economy, which leads us to saving resources. So we really need to interconnect all those topics. Otherwise, we cannot understand our urban metabolism, as Francesco stated. And so we really need to learn to talk to different people in different languages regarding their expertise.
This is basically, let's say, an introduction question to Clarice, because we have a planners created environment. We are still living in it. It's something that modernism fostered a lot in the 50s, 60s, and now we have to somehow deal with it. And we can't let, let's say, this approach of our discipline left behind. Do you think that shifting to a built environment of inclusion is needed? And we think we have the answer to that. It is needed. And what dots do we need to connect as planners to, let's say, find this meta level together with those who we are basically planning for?
I think there are many sides to the answer to that. One of them is the role of participation, the role of public participation, which has been increased recently. And nowadays it's almost inconceivable to have a project in which you don't have public participation. But as I said before, participation on its own it can be complete lip service to the problem. You can have, there is even studies that show that there are different degrees of participation. But I'm not so much thinking of participation per se, because there are many studies about that, but how we actually use the knowledge and we extract this knowledge from participation, because I think technicians are poor on that. We are not really listening to the communities to integrate the issues that they have to try and address these issues, to transfer their knowledge. We are also poor in methods of integrating with the community, because potentially it would be more interesting for us as designers and as planners to engage with communities so that we sort of co-design in a productive way, but also that we do not create false expectations that their solutions are going to be the solutions put forward. Because there is a danger in co-design, which is exactly that. You engage with the community and all of a sudden they propose solutions and they think, oh yeah, we propose a solution, it comes from us, and then the technicians have to implement. So that can put us into a complicated position. So we have to be a bit careful about that engagement. Yes, I think we need to co-produce, but we have to, each of us have a role into that. I mean, the technicians and the communities know well their problems. The technicians know a collection of solutions that the communities do not know, because they are technicians. So it was the story that I always try to look at as an analogy, is like, you don't go to the doctor by saying to the doctor, what is your problem, right? You go to the doctor, you give symptoms, you discuss together, and then the doctor in the end gives you a solution to the problem, because in the end, he is the one with the knowledge. So I think we are not there yet. We just jumped into this participation thing, we jumped into this co-production, but we are not really understanding how to capture this knowledge. That is one aspect. That is our aspect as technicians, looking and integrating with the community. Another aspect is technicians among ourselves. You know, we have not only different views of the world, but we also have different ways of operating and doing our job on an everyday basis, which is very complicated to integrate. And we need to think a bit more of iteration and iterative processes, because it can't be just a one-off point of communication. And like smart beam or exchanging technologies won't do the job. We still need to sit around the table and have conversations and have productive conversations and try to align objectives and potentially looking at ultimate objectives and then cascading them down through several iterations so we can go back to them and try to find integrated solutions. And we are not currently doing that. I think we are poor in exploring that, especially in the building industry. Perhaps we could try and borrow a bit more of the product industry on that respect, because some product industries are quite good in doing that. So that could be potentially a way to look at it. But also they have other problems with that, right? They do not many times discuss life cycles, and there is obsolescence that is programmed and a lot of other things. But so I'm not saying borrow everything, but I think this conversation around the table, this iterative process of the different professionals, and the idea that we actually should know a little bit of each other's way of thinking so that we can actually talk better to each other, because that is not happening. It's really a linear flow in which we just... It's
totally something that we have to foster. And I think this is also something that needs to be addressed on a governance level, so on a political level, where we can have a triad, the planner, let's say, the users, and let's say something that is also fostering this on a bigger picture. And what about, Francesco, how is participation and inclusion impacting system thinking? Can you give us some perspective or some dots that we can include in our connecting network of future work?
Yes, of course. And but first, I would like to say that both Anna and Clarice said very important things, because this kind of mindset is unfortunately still quite unusual. And the answer to your previous question, David, about the necessity of putting together different, disciplines and aspects of the same problem is definitely yes. Me as a system thinker, I am accustomed to see patterns, to see diagrams, but if I don't have inputs coming from specialists about the systems I am trying to describe, well, I cannot go nowhere, of course. No. And in the end, we can together, working all together, translate your knowledge into, a concept diagram that we can eventually simulate with some kind of software tool. And so we can study, we can apply at your level, what they first applied, back in 1972 with the limit of growth and all those kind of knowledge that was absolutely a novelty for that time, but unfortunately is quite difficultly applied even in the academic world. Anyway, to answer to your question, well, yes, system thinking is a tool that may be applied and that puts together, in principle, all the aspects that concur to the operation of a system. So if you have a complex system of any nature, actually, all the different aspects coming from both the constraint of a geobiosphere and the political constraints, the environmental, the social constraints come into play in defining what is the self-organization of a complex structure, like the built environment, of course. And so in principle, none of these aspects may be neglected in the description of the whole operation of a system. And to do that, you need the help of sociologists, politicians, ecologists, historians, architects, urbanists, of course. and all those people that in some degree have to do with the urban life, included stakeholders, dwellers, and so on. So it's a fascinating field of study, because virtually it includes almost all the aspects of the human knowledge, ranging from a language to politics to biology, of course. And
these are great points, Francesco.
For sure, it's a great point. It's not a point.
Okay, Francesco froze. And because there is one, just to close this panel also in a holistic way, there was a question from the crowd.
We have to adopt a holistic perspective. Otherwise, we don't get anywhere. So in this respect, I think that both Anna and Clarice pointed out very sharply which are the basic point to start from to work on it.
Just to use the last seconds of our panel, there was a question, do we need holistic citizens to manage the cities in a holistic way? Maybe it's an ironic question, but do we need special rules, policies, regulations? Are those enough to manage this big organism called cities?
I don't think so, because when a system is, let's say, well structured and organized, this is automatic. Mm-hmm. Holistic citizens are the natural, result of a holistic city. So it's a process of iteration in which people are accustomed to live this way, virtuous way, let's say, and the city becomes in turn virtuous. And so the citizen, and so the city, and so the citizen. It's some kind of self-organization. If you are able to find out the correct leverage point to act in the planning of the city and to activate these mechanisms, things go that way.
Great. Clarice and Anna-Vera, maybe two last sentences to respond.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you very much for the invitation for the panel, Jelena and David. And I wanted to make an invitation to everybody to submit contributions to the special issue in the Journal of Sustainability and DPI, which is one of the outputs of WG5, called Regenerative Buildings and Beyond, the Scale Jumping, Sustainable and Net Zero Designs to Regenerative Neighborhoods, Districts, Communities, and Cities. So we are open. We'll postpone the deadline to June. So I invite everybody to submit and because it's supposed to be one of the forums in which we discuss this holistic aspect of integration and participation and so on.
Thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you.
Anna-Vera, one last sentence.
One last sentence. Thank you so much for this invitation. And I'm so... how should I say? I'm really happy that this panel, I think we just showed that we are all three thinking in a very holistic way, even we didn't really knew each other before. So this is something what is really, which gone to my heart as I heard what both of them stated today.
Great. So let's keep this network alive by working together, I would say.
Yes, please.
Carlo is already watching us.
Thanks a lot. It's a very positive message to close this session.
Very much.
It's a very positive message to close this session. I would like to thank you once again from our Restore network. It was really short, but really dense. And I think we learned a lot. And with this clear vision for the future, so Jelena, I think it's your turn again to deal with Martin about this interesting, let's say, game. Let me pass this word. You set up for this day, and we are very curious about the results and how we can contribute to the restored city of the future.
Thank you, Carlo.
Thanks, Carlo.
Sorry, Martin, just a few notes which also came to my mind while the session was ongoing for VG5. I think really this system thinking is also, to me, very, how to say, inspirational in a way, since it comes to the, again, let's say, working in a holistic way of biological and artificial systems. And I'm very, very curious to see how would we do this merging of artificial elements and biological elements, and also some rational and irrational, I would call, Martin, I guess, would agree with me, needs of the humankind. So when we talk about humanity, not everything is measurable, not everything is rational. And I think that from cybernetics, and again, Francesco, I guess, knows this area better than me, there have been multiple failings in, how to say, translating the human spirit or some levels of functioning to the artificial intelligence. So I must agree, and a very nice point, Francesco, on this, that yes, we should not trust smart technology only. It must be more than smart, it must be flexible, and it must involve other parameters which are not maybe so scientific and then so measurable and similar. Just a mind from my side too. And I'm transferred to Martin to go further with this exercise, which we invented as something interactive dialogue, which should be preferably happening physical, but we transferred to the online sphere. So thank you everybody for participating, and Martin, please go further.
Thank you. Yeah. Difficult to do an interactive exercise, and just wish we were in Paris and we could get out and go out into the field and do something really interactive. But what a fantastic day we've had so far. I see on the attendees list quite a few people have joined us since we started this morning. So I'd like to just recap on one or two things, and then we'll get into something a little interactive. But one of the comments we talked about this morning, if we can't imagine a future, it's going to be very, very difficult to get there. And one thing I've noticed from the fantastic comments which have gone onto the Discord is that, yes, we can imagine, but maybe we need to take another step forward and imagine it a little better. So with apologies for showing this again, I think this is very powerful. Flashing images, beware.
This could be the most important minute of your day.
We have been through difficult times
and face big problems ahead.
But every crisis contains both danger and opportunity.
You can play your part.
Right now.
Right now.
Please close your eyes.
Imagine the better future we could have.
Imagine that future.
What does it look like for you?
for the people you love.
How do we lift each other up
and make it fair?
How do we protect nature
and save our shared home? Picture that future you want.
Now open your eyes.
It's time to talk about the future we want.
Yeah, it's time to talk about the future we want. I just love some of the words in there. It's time to open our eyes. It's time to lift each other up. It's time to have a vision for our shared home of what we want into the future. So the Restored 2030, we have been talking about throughout the day, really, and over the last few months, will be a Restore, Final Action, Dissemination, and FAD. And we are looking to create a guide which imagines that built environment as a future. And we see it as a toolkit. It's going to be a collection of various guides. We'll have activities, we'll have flashcard exercises, there'll be quotes and things from thought leaders. There'll be a system thinking guide. Many thanks, Francesco, for your comments into WG5. We need to expand that so that becomes core of the way we go forward. The toolkit will be aimed at schools, academia, practice, communities, companies, so we can pick it up and use it as an exercise. It could be an hour, it could be a day, it could be a good number of modules. It will inspire. There'll be lots of inspirational stuff in there. And of course, it will be a signpost into so many references to help people along the way. And we see this, or I see this, as one of the key Restore legacies. And I'm asking you, and I'm inviting you to share your passion for the change, for all the change that we've been talking about during the day. And if you want to get involved, I'll tell you how to do so in a moment. We've been dropping comments onto Discord all day, some lovely stuff in there. And I invite you now to go back into Discord and have a look at the comments, add more. We'll take up to 5 minutes just to play around within Discord and have a look at the icons and the emoticons. At the last look, there were 50 people active in Discord. We have 80 or so active here on the on Zoom. I'd love to see, I don't know, 50 more contributions. I'd love to see 50 more likes. And have a look at those icons, because you can actually use a flower icon. And hey, you could hug people. I know if this was in Paris, the last full conference of Restored, there'd be quite a bit of hugging outside of these times, of course. So if you love something there, you can use a heart, you can use a hug, or just a thumbs up. So please do go in and have a look. And we'll take a few moments to do that. Whilst you're playing around in Discord, I'd just like to show another video. This is a video that was shown in Faro way back, 3-4 years ago. And for many people, it switched us on to what regenerative thinking is all about. And this might wake us up this afternoon as we listen to wolves.
One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years, that the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up and built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds, of migratory birds, started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes. And as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. But here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion, the channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
I still think that's a very, very powerful little clip there, which illustrates how we can get tipping points and we can do all sorts of things. But it really illustrates what regenerative thinking is all about. In terms of doing the exercise this afternoon, I've just realized I cannot see Discord when I'm sharing my screen for some reason. I need to come out of that. But we can have a look at that in a moment. These are some of the clips which I took from the Discord throughout the day, right through to the last comments in the last panel. And Clarice, I love the idea of no more silos. But I'd just like to go back and pick up some of the comments which people have raised there. Carlo, you mentioned no more speaking about sustainability. Do you want to just expand on that?
Yeah, so we are really speaking a lot about sustainability, while at the same time we are trying to find thousands ways to overcome this concept. And again, we definitely realize that it has no added value if we say that sustainability is basically giving back to the environment what we are taking off, and this is something that we should do without having anyone pushing us to do it, as for instance low regulations or whatever. So I think we definitely need to put both of our feet directly into this new era of regeneration, of a regenerative approach, and thinking in a more holistic way on how we really can contribute without providing a positive contribution to what we are doing in our professional and daily activities, but absolutely avoiding any sort of damage.
Thanks, Carlo. And I like the concept that Emmanuel brought up in the keynote, a new ethics for a complex world and Prospero, and that was added to within the chat there. For I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Eudaimonia, good spirit, human flourishing, prosperity, blessedness. Fantastic words. Yeah, let's see if we can move towards that. Then moving on to WG2. Yeah, Carlo, not unsurprisingly, we've got living buildings as a normal practice. We've also got a real sense of place reflected across the city's buildings, infrastructure. There's a nice discussion on more community engagement. Clarice, that was one of your points. Just wondering if you'd like to expand on how we go about community engagement. Okay, maybe Clarice is not online.
Well, I see she's online, but maybe she's not listening.
Maybe away from the computer. And I like the idea, which has also been talked about during the Discord, about more community engagement in terms of citizens' assemblies, forming assemblies, which may well have the final say on a design or on a building or a place. And then within WG3, some brilliant ideas coming in here. Material hunters, harvesters, cultivators. Yeah, let's grow our building. If we're talking about plant-based buildings, let's grow our buildings. Carbon neutral buildings, yeah, we would expect those. But the whole idea of learning from nature, permaculture, is fantastic. Julia, not sure if you're still online, but I wonder if you want to sort of comment on any of these.
Yes, of course. So I think that all these topics you mentioned or these principles you mentioned are really important and are the future. But I think that one even important thing is that we need to find the ways to implement all this concept. And I think that there will be one of the challenging step towards the regenerative future. And so to make the concrete basis to allow the realization of all these long-term goals. And this was indeed what we tried to investigate in our working group.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for highlighting that. And I think, you know, once we've imagined what a city in 2030 would look like, then we can work out how to get there.
Yes.
Yeah, when we can work out what we want, then we'll move in the right direction.
Yes.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you, Martin.
And then on WG4, yeah, healthy materials, servicization of buildings and components. Absolutely, yeah, important aspects. And I wonder if someone from WG4 would like to comment on the servicization of buildings, or servicization of components. We hear of servicizations of roofing components, which could be reused, different warehousing.
Well, hi, I'm still here, Talia.
Okay,
I don't know if nobody else is here. I can comment something. Yeah, I mean, in the end, the concept of regenerative design is much wider, and I think that's what all the speakers also previously tried to demonstrate. In that case, building is really where our life is taking place, especially now in those times. So it's an important component to consider. Yeah, I don't know if I want to focus necessarily servitization of building and components. I'm not really sure, but I would maybe translate that like as the building need to serve this function and to serve the users rather than the other way around. And that's what we try to develop by identifying all those KPIs that we need to keep in mind and technologies that we need to consider, and then also ways to evaluate those and assess, always having the user in mind and the comfort that the user needs to have in the built environment.
Brilliant, thank you. And then on to WG5, and unsurprisingly with scale jumping, there's lots of things in here. Healthy materials in construction, communities that are socially just, culturally rich, ecologically sound. I think I've heard that before many times, Carly. The new EU new Bauhaus. I'm glad someone picked up the using less, demanding more, which is the Patagonia slogan of the moment. So let's use less materials, simpler materials, but demand more from those materials. Demand more on their circularity, on their transparency, etc. Embracing system thinking, new relationship with nature. And then there's a comment from Naomi around training from master craftspeople. We're losing some of the core traditional skills, which we like to bring them together. I just want, would someone like from WG5 like to sort of comment on any of these? Jelena.
Yes. Well, yes. Well, we learned a lot. I think I'm very I have to say I learned a lot from the WG5 interdisciplinary approach, and I'm very happy that we also involved Francesco not only to write the, let's say, forward to the book with the focus on system thinking, but also that we really practice flexibility between the disciplines, and also this mindset is really, how to say, evolving while listening to other people and their say comments and needs. Also, there were very practical things that we discussed on the training school. Anna-Vera took us to a few locations where actually projects failed. So we were discussing why they failed, and then you can, of course, understand how it is actually a complex, of course, issue to understand everybody's needs and which would be the participatory models for decision making. I'm not even sure, because I'm not sure that also citizens do have how to say proper knowledge on how to say really guiding the design plans, but they can certainly integrate and they can certainly enhance them. I think that this must be curated in a very precise way, and some strategies should be developed around this. Citizen assembly has final place. That is for sure. In implementation, we see what has been a success and what has been not. Well, embracing complexity is not, of course, a simple task. It is, of course, just a topic to think about. Of course, adaptation and flexibility, I think, the most important and how would I say, feature for survival with anything, and also with our built environments. We must be very flexible and attentive to, of course, resources. And this new relationship with nature is something that I really like, as we are beyond some points. As I said in some of the discussions with I said, we are, how to say, after the rise of technologies, especially digital technologies, there is no coming back to nature as we know it. That is, I guess, not possible, but new nature, which would be supported by artificial intelligence and also by, how to say, artificial life. But we should think about this, as Roy asked, but also argues in his wonderful text, Back to Nature. We must adopt also this artificial life and artificial how to say, technology and the whole system to be actually a part of nature. We also had these discussions in Vienna. Are we above the nature? Are we autonomous to nature? Are we just a part of nature? Why did nature allow us to have all this kind of behavior, and what do we do with it? So this new relationship is really more of a philosophical question than just then it can be put down to the operational level. And yes, craftsmanship is something that that is how to say, again, coming into trend. All this how to say, variable and very unique let's say, design solutions, and also all the other things that are connected to craftsmanship. How can we actually interpret this through technologies, and how can we actually come back to some ways of functioning, living, and similar? And what I could ask to all the panelists here is what I'm curious about, what are their main concerns about the future? So we did mention many things, but for example, for well-being, what would you say? Martin, maybe you can start. What do you want to think about?
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Health and well-being really hasn't featured in much today and much of these comments, but yes, certainly it's a big issue. And as we looked at Restored in the Working Group 5, it was a key pattern. Yeah, excellent. Okay, and then I sort of cast mind back to, I don't know, it must have been 2015, 2016, when Carlo, myself, and Manuela sat down in Drove as part of the regeneration program and started to put Restore together. And I think since then, there's been an absolutely fantastic journey of emergence and new ideas. And the 5 publications are wonderful. We've got a book on the way. But maybe one of the legacies of this, which could be expanded into much future work beyond Restore, is Restored 2030. So once again, I invite you to share your passion to take this legacy forward. If you want to get involved with this, please indicate. We've got 2 or 3 channels open today, so you can say so in the chat. You can say so on the Discord, or I will put our emails, my email and Jelena's email, into the chat box. And we will send an invite to you to get involved as an attendee from here. I think with that, just one more task for you. Yesterday morning when we started the Living Future Europe, Carlo asked how we would use 2020 in one word. And we put a little graphic together with that. For the rest of the afternoon, which is I think just probably an hour or so left, I'd like you to just drop one word into the chat box here in Zoom. How would you sum up in one word your vision for 2030? I'll let you go with that. So Carlo.
Deserve, I would say, recap from Daniel Friedrich, our scientific communication manager, on the things we have been producing in these 4 years, because apart from clearly working a lot in working groups and meetings and so forth and so on, I think I can say we produce a number of materials. And thanks, Daniel, for an update on this.
Okay, thank you, Carlo. I hope you can see the slides.
Yes.
And you can hear me? Okay, yes, perfect. Yes. So also for me, it's a pleasure to take part today at the conference. And I must say, brilliant presentations. And for me also, a big honor to bring all these presentations now to full circle with a overview on our Restore Science communications. I'm the communications manager, as Carlo said. And indeed, I had the big opportunity to receive a lot of insights over the last years into all the single projects. And it was indeed also a little bit hard work to communicate all these brilliant results and to provide now an overview to you where to find these results. And yes, my call to you also today to use these results as much as possible. So what I want to talk about very quickly is to present some facts and figures which really show that indeed we had a big plan 4 years ago, but we were also well prepared. Yes, then some bullet points, if it is possible to summarize these 4 years of activities by some bullet points, but they really show what have we done in the last years. Then also some words on the disseminations, particularly about the printings, the reports and the booklets. They have already been presented today by the single sessions. But I would also like to touch on the online tools, especially on the Atlas of Solutions, which has not been mentioned so far today. And then also some dissemination, which is still in planning phase. And last not least, I would like to touch upon what will happen once the action is over in a couple of months, because this is not the very end. I think then the work really continues, because then it's the task of all of us to bring all our Restore philosophy into practice. And then my call also to finalize the presentation, to stay connected with Restore. So some short figures about our action. Carlo explained very well this morning that we are nearly 150 members, having been active in the last couple of years. And we came from around about 50 countries, and we mostly came from academia and industry, which is a very good mixture. And I must say, this is my third action I'm active in, but I have never realized before such a broad range of competence fields, which we have covered by our 150 members. And I think this is really the point where we can proudly say that we have been well prepared to work on such a huge goal, which is the paradigm shift in economy and industry. So you all might know our website, Restore website, and here you find all the information we have stored in the last years. And we actually have more than 50 subpages on this site. And now I would like to show you where to find which outputs. And you know that we have been working with 5 working groups, and they have already presented today all their outputs. And you find the results here in this section on the website. Then we also had academic training schools, the TS, which are also well reported here under the TS sub-page. And you find a lot of reports, agendas, outputs there, also to get inspired from these. Then we also had a very well conducted industry workshop from the working group 4, which was last year. It's also can be found here under the working groups. And we had a lot of scientific missions, more than 20, as we have been learning today. And they are also can also be found here under the STSM subpage with all the reports. Then also the information about the conference grants and the publication grants, they are also well described here. Then the carbon offsetting, this is a special project we have been starting this year, which is also quite extraordinary among the cost actions, and this is also well described on this page here. And last but not least, to mention all the different meetings we had, quite a lot, 5 management committee meetings, so the 5th will be tomorrow. And we had at least 50 core group meetings and countless subgroup meetings. And we also have some reports. For all these meetings, we have entries in our Restore calendar, which you can also find on the website. And they also well explain what we have been talking about in all these meetings. So as far as the deliverables are concerned, I will open all these because we have already heard about them today. But what I want to say with this page here is it is not only the final book, it's a brilliant result from all the working groups, but on the way there have been already the TS reports, the STSM reports as another output created in each of the working groups. And you find all these reports, of course, in our Restore website. And I must say, these are really grand outputs. The final booklets, very strong booklets from 150 pages to more than 400 pages. And even now the 5th booklet is in the finalization phase. And what is worthwhile to mention, we have not been talking too much about this today, but we will end up the action also with a big book. It's a final book, Restore book. It will be released in the very near future, and it will contain 300 chapters, 300 pages, 22 chapters, written by 37 authors coming from 20 countries. And really, this really shows the broad range of expertise which has been covered by our cost action. And what I would also like to mention today is the Atlas of Solution, which is a virtual output. It's not a printed version, but you can easily find it on the website under deliverables and tools. And it's really worthwhile mentioning because it consists of 36 case studies, reporting from technologies, improving indoor environmental quality. and has been established by the subgroup F from the working group 4. And it is really a collection of different technologies reporting from locations all over the world. Most of them, of course, are located in Europe, but it's really a brilliant output, which you can also use in your daily work at universities together with the students to make some technology comparisons. Yes, we also have been reporting regularly on all activities which took part in Restore over the last years. And you can get a good overview about what happened when by our monthly released Restore newsletters. And we have already a nice collection of these newsletters. To date, we count more than 40 of these newsletters. And they reported about the finalized activities, about the documentations, acknowledging Restore, and the taken management decisions. But they also reported about the upcoming activities, which further activities are planned, what are interesting paper calls for journals where we can publish our results. They report about congresses where members of our action took part, and nominations, etc. So take your time, check our newsletters. You can find them on the newsletters, and they really give a good impression how busy we were over the last years. Then I would like to come to the further printings, which are still in planning. And we already heard about 2 projects. The first project is Restore. Restore will be a book about managing a cost action as a project. And here we will report about all our experiences, and we will try to give advice for further actions. Maybe a little bit to learn about from our experiences, because when comparing ourselves with previous actions, we had a lot of members, we had a lot of single tasks and outputs, and this is really a management task in the end. And we'll also provide a chronological overview on all the activities which have been taking place. And yes, we will summarize the lessons learned from our action. And Martin and Jelena reported from our Restored 2030, and we have collecting today a lot of good ideas for this future city following Restore philosophy. And this is something where we want to also inform everybody how such a future city could look like. And we will also create a separate subpage on our Restore website, summarizing all the findings of today, and also a dissemination package with training materials, with workshop guidance, which you can also use in your future work in academia, but also in practice. Yes, what will happen once the Restore action is ended? We have been hearing today, everybody is a little bit sad about our action coming to the end, but it's not the very end, I must say. You can see that we have still a lot of work to do in the remaining month. But yeah, we will also continue working on the deliverables, because they are not yet finalized, obviously. First of all outputs are freely available for use, and you can find them mainly on the Deliverables website. And here there are all the online books, the graphics, the videos, the presentations, etc. And most of the documents are scientifically citable, so you can use them in your research work, in your lecturing, and yes, you can cite all the outputs which can be found there. And mostly my part as the communications manager, I will also continue updating with the website with all what is happening, what is worthwhile knowing. We have a nice landing page where we have posts regularly informing everybody what's new. We also update our website with the member publications acknowledging Restore, and I'm quite sure at the moment a lot of manuscripts, they are still in review at the journals, and they will be published next year. And I really count on a lot more papers reporting on our outputs, which are published in scientific journals. Please report them also to me, and I will then upload them to our website. We will also inform everybody about upcoming congresses where we can continue talking about our Restore action and our outputs. I'm quite sure a lot of our members will continue reporting in upcoming congresses about their work. And I will also inform everybody about notifications on planned joint research projects, because yes, everybody is a little bit thinking what will happen after Restore. There are some upcoming projects where we might take part at. And if something like this is planned, I will also report on this. I will put a post on the starting page to inform you, yes, there is something in planning, and yes, to keep you up to date. And I would like to close my short presentation with some proposals for practical applications of our outputs. I'm also working at universities, at 3 universities at the moment, as a lecturer and a researcher. And I've been starting working very much with our Atlas of Solutions, because they really provide brilliant insight in different technologies. And very practically, I ask my students, please conduct technology comparisons. As a project work, you can use them in your final bachelor theses to make comparisons between different technologies, representing new ideas with regenerative design aspects. As a lecturer, I have a high interest to be up to date with the contents I'm lecturing. And also in my lecture courses, I use aspects from our Restore action in my script. And this is also something which I can highly recommend to all of us, to use these contents, to cite them in your lecture scripts, and to make them accessible to all the students, to bring them to life in the next years. The Restore final book, I think this is a really brilliant book, summarizing all the different aspects. I've been saying at the beginning, we have 36 different competence fields, and I'm quite sure we even have more than this. And this final book can be a great inspiration for industrial managers to reorient the business. And we've been hearing a lot today about sustainable business. And I really think now it's time to inform everybody about these ideas and to make them changing their thinkings. And project managers, they can really benefit from our upcoming Restore book when they are planning their projects. And they can really get inspired by our experience from a project which lasted 4 years, which is quite a long time, with so many participants. And I think it's really good input to their planning work. And universities, they can also expand their teaching concepts, because what we have learned today, also the working group 5, they had a subgroup where they talked about what should be a paradigm shift also in teaching the future engineers and economists, taking account the Restore paradigm shift. And last not least, public authorities, politicians, humanists, etc., they can also draw inspiration from our Restore 2030 book once it will come out next year. And I think this is also a nice gift to others to show them what is possible in a future city 2030. And last not least, I would like to start a call to you. Please stay connected to Restore. Visit the website, start communicating or continue communicating with us. We have this link here to eurosto@euroc.edu. We have a own Facebook site. This is the link here. By the way, all the presentations from today, they will be uploaded on our final conference website. And in my presentation, I have a lot of links inside. You can click them and then you get directly leaded to the deliverables, also to the Facebook, to Twitter, where we are present, and also on ResearchGate. I have a project which is reporting about our Restore output. So we see a lot of work has been done and still ahead of us in terms of science communication. Please report everything which is worthwhile knowing, which should be spread to all our members in the near future. You can direct contact me via my email address here. I will use your information for updating the website, for communicating it in the newsletters. We have some newsletters to be released till the end of our action. And I'm really interested in your experiences you have made with our dissemination outputs in your future works. You can also tell these to me. I will spread the message around. Thank you very much for your attention. And I must say thank you to all the presentations today, very informative. And I think we all had a long day today, and I will hand.
Very final closing remarks from my side. I will keep it really short. So thanks again for participating today. It's quite impossible to thank you personally, each of you, but we have really been impressed by your passion and commitment and the contents you share with all of us. So the question in the beginning was, have we really been able to become regenerative in the end? This is a very difficult question. I do think that it's quite impossible to be fully regenerative. I think we set up the ground for the next actions, projects, proposals, networking activities, and so forth and so on. What I do find personally as a great added value is the network we have been able to put into place in these 4 years of incredible collaboration. And please consider that there are still 4 months until the end, the official end of the action, where we will be basically committed in producing other dissemination activities and materials, as Daniel anticipated, including possibly some events, clearly depending from the real situation. I really see in the very end a couple comments or maybe proposal and suggestion to explore further our potential in the next future as a Restore network. So on one side, how to scale up really our effect at a larger scale. So we touched base for a while on the scale jumping concept, but another scale jumping concept that we did found as very important is how to scale up the effect on a bigger scale, at the larger scale. So going outside of our, let's say, niche and creating the condition for really achieving a systemic change, meaning the construction sector and the building industry, in the built environment, in the real estate arena, in all of the sectors of the economics that are really directly connected with the things we are doing. And the other point, in these 4 years, maybe we have been more focused on architectural sustainability, engineering topics, more, let's say, on the environmental side of the story, in a certain part also on the social aspects, but maybe we have not been able, also due to the time and also to maybe the lack of some expertise, to address the economic issues with the same attention, with the same commitment. So this might be also another opportunity for the next projects to come. So creating also the economic condition in which the regenerative sustainability we are envisioning really become possible also in a practical and economical way. And it becomes really everyday, let's say, way of life, let me say, in this way. So with that, thanks again to all of you for all the incredible work and participation.